The Chicago Bears assistant coaches are down here at the Senior Bowl coaching the offensive and defensive line, so we'll get to know those prospects as well as some wide receivers that stood out on the first day in Alabama.
You are Locked On Bears, your daily Chicago Bears podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Bears, and I'm your host, Lauren Cox. I'm here to bring you your daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. You can follow me on Twitter at CoxSports1. You can follow the podcast on Twitter at Locked On Bears. You can like Locked On Bears on Facebook, join the Locked On Bears Facebook group for even more Bears talk, and make sure you hit that subscribe button on the Locked On Bears YouTube channel to keep up with all of our video podcasts as well. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. On the show today, we'll recap some of the NFL draft prospects at the Senior Bowl that the Chicago Bears themselves have been keeping a close eye on, coaching the offensive and defensive lines on the two teams, plus some of the wide receivers that could be in the mix. We'll talk about the quarterbacks as well, although maybe not this crop specifically with the number one overall pick, but a lot to get into. That's why we're going to be joined by Robert Schmitz from the Bears blog. You've seen him on Twitter as well, who does a great job breaking down Bears, breaking down NFL film, and hey, it's a lot of fun getting his Senior Bowl analysis to go with mine here in person in Mobile. All right, we're joined now by Robert Schmitz, the editor-in-chief of the Bears blog. You can follow him on Twitter at Robert K. Schmitz. He also has a YouTube channel where he does a bunch of great film breakdowns. I saw you did a big, long live stream on Shane Waldron the other day.
I did.
Did I see 6 hours?
Well, so we always get distracted. So there's like 3.5 hours to 4 hours on Shane. And just to use a specific example, if Luke Getsy is trying to always build a symphonic orchestra, right? The left tackle plays the oboe, or DJ Moore plays the saxophone, like whatever you want it to be. Shane Waldron's just 4-piece jazz. Like, we're going to run outside zone. Maybe we'll run inside zone with a running back taking an outside zone track, and we'll figure it out. Like, we're going to run double stick with a corner route over the top. If it's not there, I don't know, be a football player. Like, it almost feels built into the offense where he's like, I don't expect to have every answer. So if you need to just do something, just do something.
Make a play.
You have my word. And it ends up with a whole bunch of DK Metcalf and Geno Smith locked in on each other when they know that they need to scramble or they work scramble drill. It's neat. It's a different approach to offense altogether. It's well coordinated. You still get receivers that are bumping into each other. So Chicago tradition.
Well, the Bears might have one of a. I mean, not the DJ Moore as DK Metcalf, but they have one of those caliber receivers. They might need another one. And there's some guys down here that, again, maybe not DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett per se, but you know,
hey, DK was a second round
pick. So
you never know.
Yeah. I know you've looked a lot at the skill players today. Mm-hmm. Let's start there with receivers specifically. Is there a guy that jumped out at you, or a guy that you thought, like, wow, like this is one I wasn't expecting, or just someone that you're like particularly hyped up about right now?
Right. So, okay, look, when you talk about skill players, this is unrelated to the Bears. I'm going to name one name, Ben Sinnott, the Kansas State tight end.
Yeah.
He continues to jump out at me. The Bears don't need a tight end.
But they could take one. They could. As a luxury. They're in we talked about that yesterday with Brian. Like, they're finally at that point with the roster where you could sign a big running back, or you could take a tight end, because you don't have to use all your resources to fill holes. You can get some luxury players too. So Sinnett's a good one at tight end.
Sinnett's awesome. And then we saw Ladd McConkey kill it today.
Oh my God, he was
so much
good.
fun. The guy who popped out at me, I don't like Brendan Rice, or I haven't liked Brendan Rice.
The USC receiver?
The USC receiver, when I watched his tape. Today, he looked strong.
So I want to talk to you about that. I saw
literally
about
strong.
That. Yeah, he would fight through contact and make tough catches. And that was impressive. But I also felt like one of the reasons he had to fight through so much contact and be so strong was that he couldn't separate vertically. I mean, like, a couple times he stacked guys, but there were a few times when he just couldn't get any separation, so then he fights back through the contact to get the ball, which is great. But if he had gotten better separation in the first place, he wouldn't have had to be so physical and would have just had an easier catch.
And if he wasn't running digs, I think I'd agree with you. But the corner would line up on the inside of him, and they'd catch him when he broke inside, right? And for me, at least, I'm right there with you, where don't pretend that Brendan Rice is any better than a third rounder, more than likely.
Yes. And this is Caleb Williams, one of his top receivers, to be specific here.
And generally, he wasn't this tough in college.
No, I didn't think so. Like, that was a nice step forward for him.
Exactly, right? It was showing me something that I hadn't seen from him, which was the ability to play big dog physical ball, right? And I thought that was fun from him. We'll see. Like you're saying, you need to couple it with a day two. If you want that, like Michael Wilson, Jaden Reed rise, you need to couple it with a day two where you're just open the whole second day in pads. But in shells today, he basically had a 1 DB try to tackle him twice and ended up fighting through both plays to catch the football, which I saw as a positive because the Bears could use an X receiver.
And was that DB the kid from Toledo?
I think it was Johnny Dixon, out of Penn State. Nobody got anything on Toledo except for Quinyon Mitchell on 1 rep. But Quinyon Mitchell...
there are 2 Penn State quarterbacks. I was like, what do you think of Kalen King? But no, okay.
Oh, Kalen King had a bad day.
Yeah, but he was so fast on the board. It said he was one of the fastest quarterbacks in miles per hour. He was getting torched and had to run to recover and get after the receiver. But you mentioned McConkey, the Georgia wide receiver, right? Georgia? Yeah.
Yes.
He was great at shaking guys. Did you catch the Florida wide receiver in the first practice? Ricky Pearsall. To me, both guys looked really explosive, short area, shake guys loose. Did you feel? I mean, it's hard to like compare, right? Because they're in different spots. But did you feel like one was better than the other? I really liked them both. I don't know if I can sit here today and say like, oh, Pearsall was so much better, because it seemed like with both of them, if you jam them at the line of scrimmage, they struggled a little bit to free up from that contact, but you put them in the slots, you get them in motion pre-snap, you free them anyway. If you don't get hands on him, you're not going to stay in front of him. Like, he's just going to shake you all over the field.
So it's so funny, right? Because they're very similar players outside of the 15-pound difference, and I think you feel it.
Kind of important.
I think you feel it, though, right? Where McConkey's faster, his feet are that much cleaner. If you don't touch him at all, and frankly, if you land a glancing blow on him, he's going to blow by you. There were a bunch of people, because it's a shells day, right? You're gonna get as little physicality as you can stand from a lot of these corners, but nobody could match feet with him. Except for Andrew Phillips, who did it once.
Yeah,
but that's a separate conversation. With Pearsall. Pearsall can handle a much stiffer jam than I think McConkey can. He's got a little less gas downfield, but I love his shiftiness. Like, to me, when you see these college receivers where they make every single stem look the same as the last stem, I think you could be a really dangerous receiver, running anything from a dig to a hitch to a deeper route downfield. And in Pearsall's case, if he can brawl a little bit, then you're willing to play him on the line every so often. And I do think, I mean, Lauren, let me ask you this, right? So for those who aren't caught up, you have to play at least one of your receivers on the line of scrimmage. That guy is much more likely to get pressed because the DB can access him very, very easily. Do you want DJ Moore playing X like he did last year, or do you want to prioritize getting an X receiver so that DJ could be your moving Z?
So it feels like that would be ideal. Keep him moving, but I think if I'm Ryan Poles, I feel like, okay, I can leave him at X if I need to. It's not ideal, but I can. So if I'm in the draft and I see a perfect move Z receiver, it's like, well, this guy's just the better player, as opposed to saying, well, no, we want DJ Moore in that role, so yeah, we should just wait and try and get a lesser X at another time or something. Like, to me, like, yes, you want him moving. You don't necessarily want to have him have to be up on the line of scrimmage in that true like outside number one receiver role. But I'm not going to force it elsewhere.
And we talked about the most important part about McConkey and Pearsall, but it's funny you brought these two up. You know what else they do, Lauren?
Block?
They block.
I've not watched a lot of their tape.
They block.
Yeah.
Like, you can tell that. So McConkey's so funny, right? Because he looks like a small school guy. I mean, he looks like a walk-on.
He does.
Like,
yeah.
I mean,
because McConkey is. I got the
he's
numbers.
84.
Yeah, he's. What is he? What is his height at here? I'm looking at. He's 5'11", 187 is what I've got on the sheet here, and then Pearsall is just under 6'1" and 193. So I mean, they don't look like big yoked wide receivers
Nope.
like the USC kid looks like. Brendan Rice looks like a wide receiver. Like, that's the body. I know we talked about his physicality. Like, that's why.
They block like madmen, though. And I think that that's going to be really attractive to the Bears. Like, if you wanted my cheat sheet of what you should be paying attention to in terms of who are the Bears probably targeting, well, they have to block. And if they do, we're thinking about it. Now, it's going to be really interesting as to whether any of the stuff that we're talking about receivers matters, because it kind of comes down to what they want to do at 9, which is a whole separate conversation.
Yeah.
They might double dip, too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's never
don't see why not.
impossible. Right.
Yeah. But Brian Poles has doubled it pretty much every year in the draft in some way, shape, or form. Like 2 defensive tackles or 2 DBs in the middle rounds of the draft.
Right.
They say, hey, we'll go in at that position. Absolutely.
There's one more receiver we have to talk about if we're talking about blocking receivers that did a little more than you thought they would. Had a good day at the Senior Bowl today, but I want you to guess which one. And your clue is, I cannot believe I'm actually about to talk about this kid. Because he has a trait that only he has out of these receivers that is annoying, because it's something that everybody grasps at early, right? And I'll go ahead and take it from you. Are you ready? Do you have an answer?
So when you first said he does something annoying, I thought you were going to say Luke McCaffrey.
It is Luke McCaffrey.
It is, okay.
Bloodlines, baby.
I was not super impressed by Luke McCaffrey today.
Nope. And you shouldn't be, because he kept going up against Quinyon Mitchell.
Yeah, and it did not go well. Like, I was trying to be nice
him.
about it, but like definitely felt like a guy who's here for his last name and not for his.
And then in the team portion, he sprung 3 runs.
He blocks. Yes.
He blocks.
He blocks.
And so if he can be your Khalil Shakir, or basically think maybe Alan Lazard-ish, where sudden enough to get just a little open on a key third down, and outside of that, he's a blocking receiver that does a little more than you thought he would, he might just find a role. But he's not getting drafted just off being McCaffrey. He's getting drafted off of being 6'1", 205 in a league that really values that.
This episode of Locked On Bears is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more, whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your vehicle, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back. Because with eBay, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. So keep your car or truck alive and at its best at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Since we're talking about blocking, I know you didn't watch a lot of offensive, defensive line today. You can only watch. I mean, it's hard to watch. Even all the skill positions, it's hard to keep track of everything there. But you saw Jackson Powers Johnson.
Yeah.
Just the way he physically looks. Like, forget the reps, which he was very good on the reps. But like Brian Perez, who we talked to yesterday on the podcast, he compared him physically to Quentin Nelson. I think that was a great, because he's got these big shoulders, and there's times when like the DT comes off of his stance up into his shoulder pads, and it's just a wall. Like, they just hit it and they don't move. Like,
right.
To me, he looks like a late first round guy now. I mean, the more he does this, and it's like,
I agree.
I don't feel like there's a path to where, even if the Bears acquired a second round pick, like, I think he's going to be gone before they would get that second round pick. So would you have to trade back up into the bottom of the first to get your center? And I know you're not sure how you feel about drafting a center, especially if it's not a first round caliber guy like that.
Especially since I have a feel. I mean, I don't have a feeling. It's not magic, right?
Yeah.
It's more like, I would be surprised if the Bears weren't going to sign a veteran center. Like, given just where they are, you can't go into the draft unprotected. You have to have a veteran center, and the only real way you're going to get JPJ, therefore, would be trading down from 9.
Way down. Probably
down.
like 20s.
Or maybe even trading down twice.
Yeah.
If you went from, let's say, 1 to 17, 17 to 25, or something like that.
Yeah, you drafted 1, and then from 9 to 17.
9 to 17, not 1 to 17. Holy moly, nobody could pay that. 9 to 17, 17 to 25, and then you took JPJ. Then he's your 6th offensive lineman, and in a perfect world, that would be sweet. Like, because
but if you're drafting him at 29, I feel like they're going to want to start him.
You're going to play.
Yeah, but it's a good point though that like 2 years ago, when like they made Lucas Patrick a priority, like when they signed him, they're like, this guy is going to be the captain of our offensive line, the leader, the guy that's going to bring this O-line together. they were wrong, but like they made that a priority. So I can certainly see where Ryan Poles is going to say, yeah, we're not effing around at that position. It's too important, especially if we're going to have a rookie quarterback behind it. We don't want to do rookie quarterback, rookie center,
right?
Or even if it is Justin Fields, like still ideally not Justin dealing with a rookie center along the way. So I can, but it still might be worth drafting one, but maybe not Powers Johnson in the first round. Maybe some guys later on. Although a lot of the theme at center today was really good blockers who can't snap the ball.
Oh my
gosh.
The
Florida kid put every snap was at the knee. I don't remember what the Florida
I don't know his name either, but
Iguakin, Eguakin.
They'd fit right in. Outside of the part where they're good at blocking.
Yeah, I mean, like once and like they rotate him over to guard, block great at guard, and like the Wisconsin kid Bordolini, I can never say his last name.
Snapping is optional.
Was not a great snapper in school, but at guard he was blocking everything. Like it was so. That's the thing. It's like the Bears need a guy who can actually snap. There's like 10 centers down here, and like 3 of them can snap, and one of them is Jackson Powers Johnson.
It must be a lost art because it was wild to me how bad Cody was at snapping. I mean, just to use an example,
and James Daniels before him, like
and Dan Feeney.
And Dan Feeney.
Like,
what
Dan
the heck?
Feeney couldn't snap either.
Yeah. It's like Lucas Patrick could snap, but just then the blocking was not always great after that. Yeah, so I don't know. Can we teach Tevin Jenkins to snap? I wouldn't want to be set, but like, or can Nate Davis snap? Like
that's what's so funny about JPJ, by the way. Jackson Powers Johnson. I mean, is he plays like a guard at center.
Yes.
And that's why I think he'll end up in the first round, is you'll justify him as a guard that we will kick to center, but could move out to guard if for some reason we needed to.
You don't get a lot of 6'3", 334 guard or centers in the NFL. I mean, you know what I mean? Like center's always a little smaller than the guards in terms of the weight there, and he is humongous, but still moves like one of the best offensive linemen down here. It was really, really interesting to watch. I want to turn to another position, one that I didn't watch, but I know you were. You've been on the safety train today, especially, and I did not watch the safeties whatsoever. But I want to start before we get to the guys at the Senior Bowl. How first of all, like, I would say, how urgent of a need do you think safety is? I guess not necessarily that you know the answer to this, but what do you think Eddie Jackson's fate is? Like, is Eddie Jackson a Chicago Bear this year? I kind of go back and forth on it, like, because when at the Ryan Poles press conference, right, he was asked about Eddie Jackson. His answer was, well, he's so valuable for these young DBs and for Jaquan Brisker. He didn't really say anything about his play on the field. It was like, well, why is Eddie Jackson valuable to you guys?
Well, I can give you the answer if you'd like. Look, I'm not trying to speak Ryan Poles.
No.
It's more like when you watch the tape normally, and what the Bears obviously intended to do was to run a very Fangio style. The Colts did this a lot too, but just disguising your safeties.
Yeah.
Like you'll have one play up and then one play down. And when the Bears run a very common call, it's cover 3 sky, right? You can look at it on Madden. You have one safety occupy the flat and one safety play up top. And that was supposed to be both guys, and it isn't because Brisker can't do it. And so when Brisker can't play the free spot, that means Brisker goes and hunts in the flat and Eddie Jackson sits up top. And when I think out loud that we are going to have a rookie do that in one of the more pivotal recent Bears seasons, I think the coach, who's defensive-minded, would say absolutely no way. And so that's where you may actually get into, like, I didn't think this was a thing. We may actually get what do you call it? A renegotiation?
Like a restructure? Yeah, like ask Eddie Jackson to take a pay cut,
maybe.
or bring the salary hit down and put on a couple void years. Was he not taking a pay cut, but just move the cap hit into the future?
I don't know.
A Ryan Pace special there?
Because for all we know, maybe they extend him, but they extend him to lower money, like a pay cut, but you'll be here for a while, like job security, but we're really going to take your $15 million this year and stretch it over 3 or something like that. I don't know. I love Eddie Jackson, the player. I think his instincts come from the way he processes the game, and that's something that the Bears would hope that he can teach, because Brisker's been getting quicker. He went from playing behind the play to playing at the speed of the play, and that's actually a very valuable change, and Brisker's looking like somebody that can hold a roster spot down on a defense and be a hitter in the run game. But also, Eddie Jackson is not getting younger, and if you're not planning around him getting hurt, you're planning badly.
Yeah.
Like, I think you need a rookie. I think you need a rookie, like the best rookie you can get in the 3rd round.
And that's a good point, because like when we started this, I was thinking like it's either do you keep Eddie Jackson or do you draft a replacement? And really the answer is and. Like, I mean, you know what I mean? It's like whether or not you keep Eddie Jackson, you need to draft a rookie. Either you get rid of Eddie and you need a rookie, or you keep Eddie and you really should have a rookie that's not Elijah Hicks.
Oh my gosh.
To be the heir apparent. I mean,
The
Hicks is
Bears-
okay for a 7th round pick.
The
but
Bears were so lucky that it was Brisker that kept getting hurt, and even then Hicks got victimized. Like, it's not that I'm trying to kill Elijah Hicks.
He's a 7th round pick. He's a special teams guy.
And free safeties aren't easy to find.
But I mean, you see Deion Bush get that interception in the AFC Championship game. I mean, they had the answer right there the whole time.
It takes time. It's just like quarterback, where it's like the longer you are in the league, the better you probably get at it. As much as I know you may joke or you may laugh at me saying this, we're looking at Deion Bush's prime right now. Like, it won't get better for Deion than this. And so,
Oh no.
I know. He went from a C or like a D plus to a C plus, and he's just going to be there for one season.
And he's going to have a nice 10-year career and have generational wealth for his family. So good for Deion
goodness,
Bush.
Deion.
But let's get into specifically like players here. Again, like this is not a position group that I know much about.
I can tell you about it.
You mentioned the Auburn guy to me earlier. Let's start with him. How did you think he did today, and who do you compare him to as a prospect?
Jalen Simpson is so funny because he's a true free safety, and nobody's going to have a worse time in Mobile than a true free safety. Like,
it's designed for you to be in a bad spot.
it's man matchups, it's one-on-ones, it's all the stuff that you literally don't do it doesn't translate. And he still almost had a pick today. Like,
the one against the back on the sideline. Yeah,
he got bullied a couple times in the one-on-one period, but I expected that, to be honest with you. Like, it sounds like scapegoating, but that's just one of those where it's like he's not going to do that. And I actually got the chance to catch up with him afterwards on the on the field, and he's such a funny dude because he's played corner, he's played safety in his lifetime, and
who does that sound like?
Right. And he'll downplay what he is because he's like, man, I'm not doing anything special. I'm just playing DB. And I love that. Like, to me, that like quiet strength, like, yes, ostentatious DBs can be really fun, but when you get it, it's probably not going to feel like that big a deal to you.
So
But it is.
quiet SEC DB who played corner and now is a free safety. God, where have I heard?
That's the thing.
Where have I heard that
He
before?
does play just like Eddie Jackson.
Yeah, but he's listed at 178.
He's light.
He didn't look tiny, but he looked light. I mean, and you could probably add 5-10 pounds of that in the NFL, but like, is that? Do you think that'll hurt him in the draft a little bit? Or like, and do you have like a general range you might think of him in?
I won him in the third. There are going to be some people that might not push him that high up.
Sure.
But, I mean, I feel like we've been down this road with like JT Woods out of Baylor not long ago. What was it? Jair Brown out of Penn State last year. Like, the NFL does actually value the super instinctive safety enough to take them in the third round, and I've earmarked 75 for the best safety the Bears can get. Maybe it's Simpson. Maybe it's a guy like Bo Brady, who's a maniac out of Maryland. Like, especially not here, but on his tape. The guy's like watching Jalen Petrie out of Baylor for a little while ago. He just won't stop making plays.
I was gonna say, he's a little bit smaller than Jalen Petrie, but
But he kept playing in the box.
Yeah.
He hit like I think it was Ohio State. He had 3 TFLs off of blitzes where he timed them perfectly, and that's not to mention the plays and coverage that he made. I know there's a lot of Bears fans that are going to be like, Robert, how on earth are you not mentioning Cam Kitchens and Kinchins? And Kinchins is definitely going before the Bears are going to draft him.
from Miami.
From
so
Miami.
you're thinking like second round and that right before the Bears get up there?
I think so. I mean,
Yeah.
I cannot get a read on how the NFL values high-picked safeties because
It's always like exceptions, and so it's hard to like make a trend out of like, okay, Kyle Hamilton is
Right.
this, but then other guys fall, and you're
And
like,
then
what?
is Kyle Hamilton a safety, or is Kyle Hamilton like a nitro linebacker that's also a slot corner that's also sometimes your box safety? Like, he's a piece, which is cool. But when it comes to at least this safety conversation, that's part of the other problem is every single position or every single safety within every single framework of defense might as well be a totally different position. And you end up with the same feel of drafting a linebacker where it's like, well, this one's kind of specific to what we need.
Yeah. So now every
that
team is
one-
going to teams are going to value different safeties at different levels. So
Right.
it doesn't mean the league values him at one level. It's like, well, teams that run this kind of defense will want, or teams that have a need at this this style of safety
Exactly.
will value those players higher, as opposed to like maybe a better football player but doesn't
Right.
fit exactly what they might want. Yeah. So that's that becomes pretty impossible to predict.
It does.
I agree with you there.
And not to mention the other thing that I don't like saying it out loud, but I think, Lauren, you and I both know it's true, is that the moment you skimp or try to cheap out on one of these positions, like you say, I will take the best safety we can get in the 5th round. This is how you completely undo all of the progress you've made on defense for the Bears, because defense works when you've got 11 strong, not 10, and definitely not 9. And so it's tough, and I feel weird because you could absolutely convince me that the best path forward is quarterback, edge rusher, whatever happens with Justin Fields. Like if we do get that pick then in the second round, something. But then next pick being safety, and then where's the wide receiver? Like, I would freak out too, and I would get it. But defensively, you would be so set.
But that's where free agency comes in, right? It's like, okay,
Thank
if
goodness.
you sign the wide, if you get, I don't know, Tyler Lockett in free agency or whatever, like, okay, then you can wait to draft that until later. Or if you get an edge rusher hits the, Chase Young, whoever hits the market, then you don't have to take him at 9. Or if you get a safety in free agency, I don't even know who's there. Like,
It'd have to be like Geno Stone. There are going to be people that want Antoine Winfield, and he could do it, but it's so expensive.
Yeah.
So expensive. When you've already got an expensive safety that you could just ask to take. He wants to be here. If he said it, not me.
Yes.
If he actually wants to be here, the Bears can make that work. I really believe that, because I think a veteran DB's experience is more valuable than meets the eye. And Eddie would not surprise me if he was the leader of the whole DB room, corners included. But that's just all vibes.
And that's part of why they got John Hoke in there as the veterans DB coach. So if you do lose a veteran player...
Right.
The Locked On Bears podcast is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Happy Super Bowl to all who celebrate from FanDuel. If you're like me, Super Bowl Sunday is about scoring the best seat on the couch, grabbing your favorite snacks, and placing some super bets. I love going all out on the food at my Super Bowl party, and I love going all out on my Super Bowl bets, getting in on the coin toss, the Gatorade, all the fun stuff. Plus, even just straight up, I don't understand why Patrick Mahomes is once again an underdog in a playoff game. I know the 49ers are good, but I just can't bet against Patrick Mahomes. And so if you're going to get in on the action, FanDuel is going to be a great way for you to end this season with a W, or 2, or 3. Not only can you bet on who will win the Super Bowl, but also bets for what players will score a touchdown, how many points will be scored, and so much more. New customers join today, and you'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Just visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to sign up. That's FanDuel.com/LockedOn. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. You can move on. All right, last thing before we wrap up here, just a quick one. I have always been in the camp, you do not draft a kicker, you do not draft a punter,
yes.
you do not draft a long snapper.
Go there.
Because
Go there.
You always find really good ones in undrafted free agency. But I have seen in person in games, and now I've seen him at the Senior Bowl practice.
Yes. Say his name.
Iowa punter Tory Taylor.
Tory Taylor is
good.
so good.
And in this year's draft, we've heard everyone say it, and it's true. Like, there's not a lot of depth in this draft class, right? Day 3 is supposed to be a bad day 3 because not a lot of juniors came out. And so if I'm sitting there in the 6th round, maybe in the 5th, how early? I mean, I think we would all consider drafting him as a special punter. How early could you, if you said Ryan Poles is going to draft Tory Taylor, like, what's the earliest pick that you could be? Would you be okay in the 5th? I think a 4th. I couldn't do a 4th for a punter.
I couldn't do a 4th for a punter.
A 5th, if it's Tory Taylor,
I could do a 4th for a punter. I couldn't do a 4th for a punter, but
I mean, clearly, like,
the Bears have 2 of them, and everybody always plays loose.
Fifths.
Oh, we do have 2
No,
fifths.
2 what? Oh, 2 fourths. Sorry, I was saying 2 what? Is what
2
I meant.
fourths.
2 fourths.
Like,
yes.
And you always play loose with the second one. You shouldn't, but you do.
Trade down to the end of the 4th round. If they take a punter in the 4th round,
what if he's good though?
But if it's outside the top 100,
like, there are so many of these picks that if you did it, as much as we joke about it, there are so many of these picks that if you did it, we would immediately clown it, and we would be like, it doesn't matter how good you are. Like,
it's a
there's
waste
no
of a
way.
pick. Yes.
When you
can get Braxton Jones in the 5th round.
Exactly.
Would you take a punter or Braxton Jones?
An
it's
interior offensive lineman would slap in the 5th round.
But at the same time,
I'd probably go 6th.
But
6th is probably my final answer.
You wouldn't take Tory Taylor in the 5th round. In the 5, you say no on the 5th round.
I don't think so.
He's so good.
I know he's so good.
When Iowa was at Wisconsin this year, he was warming up. He was standing on the 30, and it's warm-ups, right? So there's no rush coming. It's not even a snap. He's just holding it and kicking it. He landed it in the end zone. It was 70 yards in the air, and it was like middle of the end zone, so probably 75.
And I mean, like,
in the air.
Lauren, I know that we would joke about this, but the part that you didn't mention is that, so look, we all love Trenton Go.
Do we? I mean, he seems like a nice guy.
That's all I'm getting at.
Yes.
I'm setting up for the hammer, right? But there were real moments this year where the fact that the Bears couldn't flip the field might have lost them games.
Yeah.
Like, let's not, we don't need to play games about like, oh, wow, 10 extra yards could have gone here or there. Like, there are points where teams will get mega charged up because they flipped the field, or where your punter will rescue you from one of those series where you go 4 yards, 5 yards, you lose a yard, and then you're sitting on the 23 or something like that, and the momentum, like the whole stadium is against you, and your punter puts the ball at the 8. And your defense is jazzed up.
Yeah,
and
like
you're
somehow the ball is out 80 yards the other way. Like,
right.
It is a weapon.
It's a huge thing. It's a huge thing that even Pat could do. By that I mean Pat O'Donnell.
Pat O'Donnell, mega punt.
He had his 70-yard bangers, and with Gil, we're just not getting them. So you're bringing in a UDFA. You're worst case scenario.
Some kind of punter, for
you
sure.
are bringing in competition,
yes,
which definitely makes me looser. I think a 6th is pretty rich for a punter, but if you actually got wind, here's what I would need. If I was in the Bears scouting room and I actually got wind that somebody else liked him enough to take him in the 6th ahead of us, yeah, I'm thinking about a 5th. I'm just going to try to trade it down so that I can get it as low as possible before I get what I want.
But it's like, okay, if you take him at, say, 145 in the 5th round, or 165 in the 6th round. It's only 20. Exactly. What's the difference in 20 picks? There's something about the number on the round, right? 5th round pick punter.
Ugh. 50 net punt average.
Yeah.
Like that.
And well, at the end of the day, like, yes, punters are weapons, but you know what else is better? Like being a good enough offense that you don't need to punt. You don't.
Amen.
If your offense is good, you don't need a weapon
that
punter.
ends up a waste.
That's the thing. So it's like, why not use that draft pick, especially a 5th round pick, to get to that point, as opposed to punter is sort of like admitting when we're not good enough, then we can have a backup option. But why don't you just try and be better in the first place?
Especially when that 5th round pick could easily become like an Anais Smith or a Luke McCaffrey, just to use 2 names that were here today, where they're not classically great, but as a wide receiver 3, they can block for you, they can do a little bit of gadget stuff. You might get that Khalil Shakir effect, right? Everybody wants to find the next Puka Nacua. We did this on. The other thing about Puka is that he's your classic medical red flag story. And that's not me trying to bring up that things may happen in the future. It's more to say that it's hard to find an all-pro safety in the 4th round. But the Bears did it because he'd broken his leg. Mm-hmm. And that's Tales old time, man.
So
right?
is that Lati this year?
Lati
Latu?
What I've heard.
He didn't wow me today.
No, he didn't. I think he has more problems on his tape than he does on his medical record, which might actually sound crazy. But the more people I talk to, I was talking to somebody who's he's working with player personnel.
Sources.
No. Oh, he's working with player personnel. I guess I shouldn't just like name. Anyways, he mentioned that this kind of thing has happened before. Like throughout history, where somebody will get medically retired, and then basically you find out that it's the university being overly cautious.
Yes.
And an actual doctor comes in and says, I don't know why we're worried about this. It happened to Jalen Phillips not long ago, and then Jalen Phillips had a perfectly fine career. So I tend to think that it's more a question of, hey, Lauren, why did Latu not beat an edge rusher in a vanilla scenario today, or like not beat a tackle in a vanilla scenario? That's worse.
Yeah. Yes. And to be clear, this is the Florida State edge rusher Latu, who
it's UCLA.
UCLA. Did I say Florida State? Sorry,
Florida
UCLA.
State is Jared Verse, so I don't blame you.
I love Verse. Mm-hmm. Jared Verse. That's an edge rusher. He had a great day today. Wow. Off the snap quickly and in the backfield. Those 2 guys were in my head. But like people talk about Latu as a 9th overall pick. Possibly, like that kind of edge rusher, and
probably not.
Didn't look. I mean, he was going up against 1st round tackles. The BYU kid whose last name I cannot say, Suama'ata'i.
Nobody can.
And then the other, is it the Oregon State kid Fuaga? They both had pretty good days.
I have a message to Bears fans. Bo Nix was particularly bad today.
Extremely average. Michael Penix won the day at quarterback for sure.
It reminds me of oh my gosh, how's his name escaping me? It's Malik Willis. Where when you've got the cannon arm, you're going to look good at the Senior Bowl.
But like Joe Milton's got the cannon arm too, and he did a backflip. But like,
oh my gosh, he did.
He threw a pass and then did a standing backflip. But like, Penix, it's just a pretty
so
ball.
pretty.
Even the ones that he's not firing, like Joe Milton threw one so hard it hit the receiver's hands and bounced off. Really,
Right.
like he couldn't hold on to it. But Penix just looks the part. I still don't think
It's so smooth.
I don't know that his tape
so
is going to get
catchable.
him up super high, but like
I don't either. And more than anything, I'm talking about Bo Nix specifically because Bo Nix's biggest question is how well does he really throw the football? Obviously, there's more questions like, okay, should we be worried about the fact that he was in school for 5 years and wasn't really draftable, but now he's draftable in his 6th? And I get the whole gamer piece. You know what I mean? Like the idea of it's really just his mobility and the way that he processes and all that. But he was so I thought Sam Hartman threw the ball better than he did. And I'm not meaning that as a super duper compliment.
No.
Like,
I don't think Hartman was that great either. Like
it just widens the trench that's already growing between everybody else and May and Williams. And then I think there's another trench there between those two. I guess Daniels is in there too, huh?
It's kind of the big three at the top. Yeah,
you got the big three, and then you got everybody else. And everybody else feels to me like right now, and this is part of why I'm saying this. Right now, we just saw Daniel Jeremiah's list get top 50 get released, and Bo Nix is in the top 25. And when all is said and done, it wouldn't surprise me to see Bo fall out of the top 25. That we're hot off the presses of his college tape, and everybody diving in, and there are a whole bunch of people going, "Oh, I like Bo Nix quite a bit." And then he's going to go to the combine, and he's going to finish out the Senior Bowl. He's not going to throw particularly well at the Senior Bowl. He'll go to the combine. Maybe he interviews well, but he won't throw particularly well at the combine.
And guys like Penix and Milton will throw well at the combine. Those guys
JJ McCarthy's probably going to interview really well and then throw really well at the combine. I bet he's going to have a killer pro day. He's going to run like a 4.4. Everybody's going to go, is he the white Anthony Richardson? No. But people are going to ask that question.
Many people are asking, yes. But I mean, it all plays into like the 9th overall pick for me, right? It's like, is there a fourth quarterback after the big three at the top that a team would want to trade up to 9 for? And like Nix didn't look like that guy today. And Penix looked good, but I don't know that he's going to be good enough to be that guy. And maybe McCarthy with a big pro day and combine can get you there, but it's tricky. It might be too concentrated at the top, and then it's kind of messy from there. So
and who knows? Maybe people end up really thinking they need Nix that badly.
Yeah.
But it's such a funny league because if your quarterback gets out of the top 14, well, the team at 17 doesn't need one. Right? Like, you start to get to the point where you get to the good teams.
Well, you get to like Pittsburgh. They're in the middle there. They're the closest thing, the only playoff team that might draft a quarterback.
If you're telling me that the Pittsburgh Steelers would go Mitch Trubisky to Kenny Pickett to Bo Nix, they will have deserved what they got. And that's not me hating Bo Nix. It's me saying
it's you hating
they're
on the Steelers.
same picture.
Yes, yes. Corporate said, corporate told me to find the difference between these two pictures. It's the same picture. Yes, the Spider-Man meme pointing at each other. Yeah, you're right. The NFL is a silly league, and then I mean a lot of this ends up feeling a little bit silly. But that's why we need smart people like you to help break it all down for us. Robert, let everybody know where they can find more Senior Bowl coverage from you, more Bears coverage from you, and NFL stuff in general.
Sure. So follow Twitter. I'm going to post my Twitter, Robert K. Schmitz. I'm going to be posting as many Senior Bowl one-on-ones as I literally have time to post over the next couple days, and then I'll try to add some more. The Bears blog is where you can find my writings every day. They come and they go as I have time to write on them. Yes. And then on YouTube, I'll be breaking down relevant Bears film as it goes. I mean, Lauren, we are in for a contentious couple weeks if you ask the right or if you ask different people, just because let me finish this with one question to you. Sure. Does it feel to you like Ryan Poles is going to honor what he said in the presser and actually take this whole thing all the way to late April? Or do you think the end is coming sooner than that?
With the quarterback situation specifically?
That.
I mean, I certainly think he says that for leverage, right? Of course, but
that's what he has to say.
I do think so, because I don't know that there's a team that's going to jump on trading Justin Fields, jump for Fields early. I think every team looks at free agency and says, okay, what's going to happen with Kirk Cousins? Can I get Kirk Cousins? If he hits the market, okay, then teams are going to negotiate, okay, and somebody's going to miss out on him. And then, Jacoby Brissett and Jimmy Garoppolo. Like, I think some of those quarterback dominoes have to fall first. Mm-hmm. For Justin Fields' price to get to the highest.
I agree.
What I mean? Supply and demand. You got to get the supply of quarterbacks down, and the demand is still going to be whoever's left at the quarterback. And maybe those teams go in the draft saying, well, I still don't know. And then draft day, okay, you miss out on Bo Nix in the first round, you miss out on the big three, and it's like, crap, we're getting into the second round, or the first round comes to an end, and that night, Fields is dealt for a second round pick. And that's kind of what it feels like it's to me.
To me, I'll tell you, I think that's totally possible. That can absolutely happen. But you end up with this position where maybe the team that thought that they were going to bet on Bo Nix doesn't want to anymore. Maybe they showed up at the Senior Bowl, they got a chance to sit down and talk to him. Some scout says, "This is the same expletive guy. He's been at Auburn. What did we think was going to be different?"
Like, the helmet's shiny now. Yes.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Like maybe they're mad, and as they head toward, or as they get closer and closer and closer to free agency, they just want the assurance that they know their quarterback.
They know who they're going to have, yes.
Like, even if it's just for 2 years. 2 years is more than you get from plenty of these other options, and they're cost-controlled. So if you do like him, like if you have to pay him, they'll tell themselves, I mean, you can imagine being in these rooms, well, that's a good problem to have. Like,
yes. If he's good enough to pay him, yes. Yes.
But it just makes...
ask the Giants and Daniel Jones. It works so well. Like, yes.
The way you're talking about this is absolutely how you chase optimal price. I wonder if Poles instead has a set price where if he can get that offer, I don't know.
Yeah.
We would have to ask him, and he'll never tell us.
That's how it worked with the number one pick, right? I mean, he could have kept pulling that up, but the Panthers gave him enough where he said, well, I could keep trying to plan this out and try and get more, but eventually it's like you bird in the hand. It's a good offer. You can't be too greedy and wait for something even better. If it's what you want, it's good enough.
Especially if Ryan Poles is actually considering trading number one, which I actually think he is. As much as I know, I would prefer to draft a quarterback at this stage of my own evaluation. I think Ryan Poles is absolutely willing to hear, all right, you want to trade me 4 first-rounders, 2 All-Pros, and like 2 second-round picks to go with that? All right, we're talking.
Yes, now we're in conversation,
and
yes.
That's a gross overstatement.
Yes.
I think Poles is willing to listen if a team really wants to sell their whole soul. But what if they don't? Like, and at what point does that hinder your own planning? Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if it gets in the way, if they feel like having their decision pretty much made might work better for them, I wonder if they accelerate. But also, Lauren, I'm speaking from the perspective that wants it done. So
I still think, talk to people around here, everyone is kind of talking about Caleb is I know, like, it seems like, out there it's still a big question, but like down here it just feels like everyone's like, yeah, it's probably going to be Caleb. So
everybody.
Yeah, like, I've not heard a single person out here going, I keep hearing Justin Fields. Like, no, everyone says, yeah, Caleb.
People go, oh, you cover the Bears? Oh, well, what do you think about Caleb? I mean, everybody, we all think we're taking him, and it's like, wow,
I guess that's
not what people say.
Settled. Yeah,
it's not what people say at home.
But yeah, so it'll be a lot more time to settle the Caleb Williams Justin Fields debate. But Robert, appreciate you so much for taking some time for us and talking. I do love doing live in person podcasts. So thanks for doing it.
So great. Thank you guys.
Thanks again to Robert Schmitz from the Bears blog for joining us on the podcast today. If you enjoyed our conversation, make sure you hit that subscribe button on the Locked On Bears YouTube channel or wherever you listen to podcasts. That's going to be the best way to keep up with all of our daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. We're going to have more Bears NFL draft content and Senior Bowl breakdowns for you all throughout the rest of this week down in Mobile, and then I'll actually be back in town for the Friday podcast and for next week as well to break down lots going on this Bears offseason. We've got to get ahead to free agency and obviously more quarterback decisions to go through. It's not going to slow down anytime soon. We're not going to go anywhere, and we're always going to make sure we still give you another opportunity to bear down.